live there. Instagram should be going, kicking in. Okay, go live. Go mute that tab. That's already muted. Okay, no issues there. All right, it is a spur of the moment Tossing Salad podcast live episode this Monday. We are with episode 34's guest from last week. Once again, Mr. Greg Isenhower. Greg, what's up, man?
What's up? It's Monday. Feeling pretty good. Had a good day yesterday,
I bet you did. The entire Sunday of this weekend, I bet you were pretty stoked.
I was. It's a good feeling.
It's Greg's a big Chiefs fan, hailing from Kansas City. And once
Also
again, the Chiefs are back in the Super Bowl again. What's that? It's like a crazy stat, like 4 of the last 6 years or something.
Yeah, that is true. And I think we're one offsides penalty away from it being 5 of 6.
Like, has anybody compared, like, are you guys better or the stats better than the Patriots dynasty?
Or, not yet. I mean, they're I saw something today. They're, Brady and Mahomes through like the same amount of games or the first 6 years or whatever it was are pretty close. But I mean, they got 6, we're not close to that yet.
I mean, just the domination of just the division, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When's the last time that you guys didn't win the division is the thing.
It's been a while. I think since Andy got there, so however he's at now, he's got to be up in that 12 or 13. Yeah. I feel like it's been 12 years or so. It's wild.
And you guys, to the point to where, remember when the Braves in baseball were just so dominant to the point to where nobody would even go to the playoffs because it was just, they did it every year. Is that the same in Kansas City or no? Because people think that because we're in the same state of Missouri that I know all about the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Right. It's very, St. Louis and KC are very different. No, it's still a pretty big deal, and I think it's cool. Like there's certain football cities out there that just do well and sell out, and it's fun to watch. So we were watching that last night, even in San Francisco game. It just didn't seem like the same kind of atmosphere. Like the AFC games all had like that cold, something cool atmosphere, and the NFC games were just a little different,
Do you think that because you're up in the Minneapolis area, so you've got the Vikings up there. Mm-hmm. Is there anything like following the Chiefs where you live?
No, it was cool at first because I think, again, the first couple of years it was like everybody was like, oh, it's so cool if there was like that. Vikings and Chiefs have had a similar, I think, like that, just those woeful years of being a great team and then ending so tragically. Like Vikings have had many good seasons end, when they shouldn't, and I think the Chiefs always had that too. And so now they're just bitter. Now everybody's just like, that's what I've noticed. Like everybody hates us now. It's like we're the team that everybody wants to see lose, and we become the Patriots in that sense. But I feel good about. I'm just like, just let me enjoy it because I know it's only going to last a few more. It's like it's not going to stay. Like,
do you think that your success? Because before we talked about with the Patriots, and we always thought, well, it's a Belichick thing, and then it was, it's a Belichick Brady thing.
Yeah.
And then when they finally broke up, apparently Brady could go win wherever he went to.
Yeah.
Is that the same as in Kansas City, to where is this just a Mahomes thing, or is it Mahomes and Reed? Or
I think it's everything. I think it takes the whole organization. You can tell, it takes our GM has made some awesome, he's had to be creative with when you lock up the big guys, the team goes out and find, they've done well in the draft. I mean, I think we had 3 starters who impacted the playoffs, and the season from the Tyreek Hill trade. So I mean, they're doing, I think it's everything, but yeah, Mahomes could go, pick a team. He could go play for the Cowboys right next year and probably win, kind of like Brady did, if you find that right spot. But it's everything. I mean, the coaching, all of them together. I think Mahomes and Reed. That's why I feel bad for some young players that just will never have that, because they just, whatever the reason, they just, the coaches keep getting fired, whatever, it's like starting over. But
I mean, but when you had Hill, who's just kind of a freak athlete and really has kind of changed the game when he's just on the field, and you guys got rid of him prior to getting rid of him, I'm curious, did you consider him as part of the combination of why you guys were, I mean, obviously he's part of why you guys are good, but the fact that you guys are still good without him.
Right.
So really he's kind of interchangeable.
Yeah. I think, the offense was different then. I mean, it was definitely a lot of, hero ball, home run ball. I think Mahomes was younger and just, it took a bit, you could tell it took him a bit to learn how to live with not getting highlights all the time, probably, but they were still winning. They were able to figure out how to just dump it in the open. The middle of the field is going to be open. So he had to change, I think. But I think the team, so probably the Andy Reid and the GM and those guys, I think they realized we just got to have talent around him. Just keep the talent coming. I mean, you can see it in the running backs every year. It's a different guy. I think they thought, I think we got by last year and we struggled a little bit this year with the wide receivers, but I think there's still that, we just need to find some young guys and that can step in and make plays. But Hill just made it so hard. I mean, he just scared all the defenses.
It's funny you mentioned running backs, and back in the day when I used to play fantasy football, I used to be crazy involved with fantasy football. That was my entertainment. Yep. It was one of those things that would make or break my weekend. Completely ridiculous, younger Brian, it would ruin my weekend if I lost in fantasy. Funny. And I haven't played in probably 5 or 6 years, and really I don't even keep up with football that much.
Right.
But from, I guess, late 90s to, let's say, 2010 or so, when, that was right around where I kind of quit playing. The running back position was the most important thing, especially for fantasy football.
Yeah.
You're drafting the running backs all in the first round. And I just kind of loosely following things in the last 5 to 7 years is running backs really don't matter. Right? No, you're not drafting them high very often, and you're picking up some guy in the 5th, 6th round and just kind of popping him in. And it's all about a quarterback.
Yeah, that's changed. I still play. I'm not as into it as I used to be, like you said. I mean, I'm at this point now where I'm if I don't play, I don't really care. But it is changed because of the part of it is, most teams are doing running back by committee. You've got 2 or 3 guys on a team versus one main guy. But yeah, it changed because it used to be you didn't draft a tight end until a certain round. Well, now, I mean, Kelsey and those guys are going, first 10 picks, and then they've changed, the points per leagues and stuff. But yeah, the quarterbacks and receivers are everything now.
Yeah, it's crazy how all that has changed. Have you ever, and you may have to think back a few years, do sports teams affect you having a good day or a good weekend? With you're a big Chiefs fan, Mizzou football, Mizzou basketball, whatever it is that you're following big time. Does that still affect you now at your age? Do you still get upset about things or no?
No, not too bad. I'll be cranky after a Chiefs loss sometimes. I don't let Missouri bother me. I think I'm separated enough from that. That's funny. That's one of the things I say about being up here is because I'm not in the KC market. I'm not inundated with the stuff, so I can watch it when I want instead.
Right.
So if the Chiefs are doing bad, I could walk away from that. I'm not going to hear the local station. The local people are talking about it just because they're like, oh, we're so tired of them winning and Taylor Swift this, and it's like they're just constantly in any media now. But yeah, I'm not really, not too bad. I mean, yeah, not
the
too
Chiefs.
bad.
If there's a team or a sports team that's going to affect you, it's just the Chiefs.
Yeah, because I think with Missouri, we're at that point, like we're excited, right? Like we would be pumped to like. It's one of those where like you're at that like, this is going to be fun, like we made it to a big bowl game. I was excited to see them like go, okay, cool. We got like we weren't in like some kind of .com bowl. We were in an actual like product bowl, like.
Right. We don't know what it is or what it's called, but we think it's pretty good.
Yeah, but when you're in like the Cotton Bowl, it's like, oh, that's it was just that's what was fun. I think it's fun to see like, if we got to the SEC championship, for example, let's say we lost to Georgia or somebody or whoever, I'd be like, I don't think it would kill me too bad. I'd be like, oh man, that's cool that we finally got back there, But with the Chiefs, like the level of like, it's up higher. But I'm also, I don't know. I try to be realistic with sports, football especially. It's like anybody can win.
But have you gotten to the point to where you're throwing things, or have you broken something? Have you done that in the past on a Chiefs loss?
I've yelled. I'll yell, but I won't throw anything. But I've screamed. My daughter corrects me. More on the positive side. It's more like excitement yelling. It's rare that I would do it on the other side. But my daughter still to this day, she cracks up these last few years. I mean, it sounds funny, but like I went to some friend's house yesterday to watch the game, and they're big Vikings fans, and they were just amazed. They were like watching you. They're like, I wouldn't be able. Your team's about to go to the Super Bowl, and you're like just sitting there, like. And I was like, well, I mean, I'm not trying to sound dumb, but I'm like, when you've been there the last few years, it's weird. The first year the Chiefs went to the Super Bowl that a few years ago, I didn't know what to do. I was like, I've always gone to the Super Bowl for 30 years, my whole life. So my whole life I've gone to a Super Bowl party just to have fun.
Right.
And so Rachel was like, what do you want to do? I'm like, well, I don't know. This is so weird. It's another game for me. Like, so I kind of want to be at home. I don't think I was like, I think I just want to watch the game.
And just be done with it when it's over. And
yeah, it was just weird. And then the second time when they played the second time we played the Eagles, we had some friends over. It was a little more fun, and then in the Bucks one we lost, so it was like, but it's just weird. It's weird when your team's in it. It's like for my whole life, the Super Bowl was like, where are we going? I'm going to have snacks. I could care less about the game. Like who's the halftime? But it's weird when your team's in it. I mean, as you know, you guys went through that run. We both Missouri teams had a pretty good run there.
Amanda, the ever hopeful gardener, says, what about you, Brian? Do you get affected by a loss? The last time that a professional sports team has affected me, or like something like Mizzou or something, I was in my early 20s, and I don't know if it's a maturity thing or just I'm detached. It's just funny watching some of these games and these like grown men that they'll show, and even some of the women in the stand, and they'll just start crying or something, or they'll get online and they're so like upset about this team losing. Yeah. And I like, getting on and maybe just talking a little bit about, man, what a boneheaded play. Right. Detroit ran, instead of, kicking the field goal, like a Missouri or something. I was like, oh, I can't believe just U.S. men's national team. I watched that quite a bit, and I'm like, God, I hate Berhalter so much, but not to the point to where it affects my 30 minutes after the game or anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to be really obnoxious, especially like with fantasy football and stuff, but that was all like early to late 20s. And then after a while, I don't know if it's having kids or just kind of where all of that, you're detaching from that, but then you're getting more invested with your kids' sports.
Yeah.
So then I have been more upset, and it has affected my life for days with my kids' sports and hockey than anything professional sports related or anything, but even I would say the last couple of years, even with hockey, I am so completely detached from that it doesn't, nothing really bothers me. It annoys me, but nothing that really affects me anymore.
That would get me too. My kids don't play sports, but we went through a brief, like just when they were little, just getting them into it, some things. And I could already tell I would be that dad that would just be losing his mind. Like, just be so into it.
But as an old guy now, you look at some of these younger dads, or even the moms. I'm not saying it's just the dads, but usually it's the dads that get loud and angry or whatever. And in hockey circles, I call them the glass beaters, because they're the dads, and it's the dads and the moms, but usually it's the dads that are up on the glass and they're just beating on the glass, yelling at their kids to skate harder or whatever.
Right.
And before
he's two.
and they're like 5 or 6 or something, or even 10 years old, and you're just like, at a certain age, you can't force them to perform any better than what they want to do, and why would you, right? If it's not innate, if they don't want to perform at a certain level or put out the effort that you think they need to put out, then that's on them, no matter however much you want to yell or scream or something. But now it has gotten to the point, and I haven't done this in a couple years, but I would point out to the parents that are even on my team and make fun of them. Like to their, like, hey, Jeff, quit beating on the glass, you know, and just making fun of them. And it gets awkward with some people because that they're pissed, you know? So.
Yeah. We're obviously in a big hockey area up here, right? I mean, we're in the state of hockey or whatever they want to call it. But Hudson, the town I'm in, is a very good hockey town. Great program, and our friends we have quite a few friends, like really. In fact, one of my good buddies was the president of the hockey, so anytime we'd go to like a party, I'd watch him, and man, he'd get pulled to the corner by some dad, talking about why a kid's on this team and not that, it's amazing. Like you said, man, hockey is like a whole nother thing of like sports parents. Like
I only have really the experience with the hockey, but I'm pretty sure it happens with any sport or after school program where you're spending 10, 20,000 plus a year. And that could be baseball. That's definitely dance. I've got a couple dads that I keep up with that have put their daughters through dance.
I've heard that's
and it's ridiculously expensive for, like, they'll travel to watch their kid dance for 2 minutes and they're there the entire day, and they're spending like however much we're spending for hockey. And I'm like, man, it's not even a sport. It's not even like something that, like, at least with hockey, baseball, something you're watching the game, it's entertaining or whatever. But like dance or whatever, I'm not don't get on me for,
here we go
dance stuff or whatever. But I mean, come on,
look at all these comments.
But I don't know. Well, I do. One more thing about the Chiefs and the hate and all that good stuff, because I've got to talk to you, because I know you have some insight on this. And then we're going to get into kind of brainstorming again about potentially trying to maybe put forth a show of sorts down the road. And again, we've talked about before with Greg that anytime that we have any kind of ideas or we want to brainstorm, we're going to try to do this on a live, so that I think it's fun for people to kind of see behind the curtains. Talking about the hate, is it accurate that this is like a perfect storm of things coming together for people in the Chiefs, where you have the Chiefs winning and going to the Super Bowl again, which with that comes people getting tired of seeing you guys, so you have that kind of hate building up. For some reason, I think there's a lot of people that really hate, is it Brittany Mahomes? And then now you're adding Taylor Swift.
Tay.
And you have that. And then I think up until last year, Jackson Mahomes was out there. And I mean, just watching the social media comments on it. I mean, just absolutely ugly.
Yeah.
My take on that real quickly, and then I'm going to turn it over to you to explain this to me, being a Chiefs fan and being from Kansas City, if I'm accurate or not.
Right.
Like the thing with Jackson Mahomes, is it kind of cringy and all that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then just don't watch. And like the people that just go on his social media accounts and you read through the comments and it's just like, you wonder why, like, depression, suicide rates, everything. I mean, it is like the worst thing. Sometimes I get upset about some comments that I get after a while, but the stuff that he gets, I'm like, well, then why are you watching why are you watching the content?
Right. Yeah, no, it's that classic thing of if you don't like something, don't watch it. You don't need to follow somebody.
Explain the Brittany Mahomes real quick. So Amanda wants to know, why are people? Is that accurate or no?
Yeah, no, it is. Like, I think it's her persona a little bit. I think she's doesn't come across as a warm person. Again, I think it's all wrong. There is, these two people have done nothing but do great stuff in the cities. I mean, giving stuff back to kids. I mean, she's technically the first donor of a women's soccer team. She's doing they've got the women's soccer team in Kansas City.
I didn't know that.
And they're building a stadium. They'll be the first one that has their own stadium. I think that the women's MLS, whatever their league is.
Yeah.
So she used to play soccer. I watched this funny. So I watched her on Kelly Clarkson's show this week. I just was curious because I saw she was going on there. I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna see what she's going on and see what she's all about. And it was real brief, but I told my wife, I'm like, man, I watched that. And like, she's just not good in front of camera, nor should she be. She's never really been, like her husband's in front of camera, he's getting interviewed, but she doesn't have to do that stuff. But yeah, so she's just a little awkward and just comes across a certain way. I watched the Mahomes, or the quarterback documentary last year that he was in, and she was in a lot of that. And I don't know. I think there's no reason. I think she's just one of those people. Like, she's just that easy to pick on. Honestly, I mean, she doesn't do anything that any other fan wouldn't do.
But as far as wives go, it's really odd. Is it? Yeah. Or is it odd? I don't know. Yeah, is it just because Mahomes is constantly in the playoffs and it's always high profile, so she's just of course going to be out there? Or does she put herself in situations?
She's active on social media, so she's like, that's what it is she's like Jackson is just always on social media. So she's at the game, she's complaining about stuff. I think she's just being her age, though. It's just the age they're at. They're 25, 6, 7-year-old. And the thing I like about her is, I mean, they've been together since middle school. So this isn't like he's going to be famous or that they got married. They've been together since middle school. They went to prom together. They grew up, like this is a long time.
And that's one of the things that you'll see all over comments.
Yeah.
Is the fact that she's the girlfriend that the guys get before they get famous, before they become Mahomes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then once they make it big, they get a completely different kind of girl.
Yeah.
And I've seen that also. So I'm just kind of curious from a Kansas City, like, is it like that within the Kansas City circle, or do you guys, for the most part, kind of protect her and it's all outside of Kansas City?
I would think so. I've never heard anybody that's a Chiefs fan talk bad about her. I mean, I think it's just the haters. Again, she puts herself out there. During the game, she's complaining about refereeing. She's talking about, I think she just knows how to get under people's skin. And a lot of it is just people just don't want to like her. You know what I mean? Like, I think, and now she's like buddy with Taylor Swift, and that just makes it worse. Then everybody's like, oh, I don't want to see Taylor Swift anymore. And we just had this conversation at dinner tonight because my son, who doesn't like Taylor Swift, my daughter, who absolutely loves her, and he just wants to be mean. So he was like ripping her, and we were both like, the whole NFL, like, this isn't her fault. She's not asking for any of this attention. She's literally, like, she doesn't want to be on camera all the time. That's the networks. That has nothing to do with her. Like,
But does your son not like her because he doesn't like that kind of music, or is it more of the brother sister thing?
I think it's brother. So he knows that she loves her. She's got her banner in her room, and and I'm a Chiefs fan. He's just that. He's always the opposite of everything that we like.
Greg, are you comfortable sharing your kids' ages?
Yes. Evan is almost 17. He's a junior, and Kenley, his sister, is almost 16. And so they're 16, 15, and she's a sophomore. So they're very close in age. And so he likes to get under her skin. But
well, so you've touched a little bit on the Brittany Mahomes a bit.
Yeah.
Does that also apply with Jackson then? What's the thing going on with Jackson now? Do you because so it sounds like you like Brittany like you do personally, like you either like her or you're kind of indifferent, but you have nothing against her.
Yeah.
What about what's your take on Jackson then?
It's the same thing. I think they're just out. He's another guy that just put himself out there. I don't know where people started hating on him for. I think he got famous doing like TikTok dances and all this stuff. I think people just find him annoying.
Well, they get onto him because they think he's hiding the fact that he's gay.
Yeah, there's stuff. He's just, I mean, honestly, I think people forget that the age of some of these people, that they're just kids. They're just kids that have money and a phone. They're in a different place than we are. And like a good example, this one, the only thing with him that bugs me or that I like to defend him on is if you've ever looked, there's this whole thing about him dancing on Sean Taylor's like tribute.
Yeah.
And if you go back and look at that,
break that down in case there's somebody watching that's not really sure. Break down what happened there.
So he used to dance before the games and on TikTok and do this little thing. He got famous doing TikTok dances and stuff. And that just was his thing. He'd always gone. He was doing that at a Washington Redskins game. Or this is back when the Redskins or whatever, maybe it was just Washington football team. But either way, that was at their stadium. And they were doing a Sean Taylor tribute, who was a famous player of theirs had died. And so they had his name and stuff painted on the field. Well, he did a dance on top of the thing, the tribute. And the people just hate him for that. But what happened is if you look at the angles, that was where they were allowed to stand. So to me, that's like, okay, so he was dancing, but it wasn't like he found it like the star at the Cowboy. It's like he didn't go over there and go, watch, I'm going to dance on this. That was the roped off area that they were given was right there.
He didn't do the Terrell Owens running to the star and doing the midfield.
Yeah, it was, and that doesn't ever get shared. And it's like, so everybody's like, oh, he danced on the tribute. It's like, but that's where he was asked to stand, or was, it was roped off. The families, that was the Chiefs family area. So to me, that's on Washington. Like, you shouldn't have put anybody there.
That explanation changes nothing.
Right.
With those guys, with the people that have that issue.
No,
right.
But I don't get to have that discussion. You know what I mean? Like, I see it, I'll hear it on a show or somebody be like, oh, I'm like, no, I'm like, but you don't hear like the why. Like, nobody knows if somebody said, oh, that's why he was dancing, but he was also, that was where he was supposed to stand. like what? From Washington,
right.
The Washington group said, this is where you can be before the game. Like,
yeah, I mean, there's so much.
Yeah.
If you want to see why social media is just how awful and dark it can get for certain people, all you have to do is just go look up Jackson Mahomes' account. I don't even know if he still has one because he's been really quiet, I think, in the last year or so. But you talk about going after him for riding his brother's coattails, dancing, everybody's saying that he's gay and hiding it, telling him to kill himself and that he needs, and it's some really ugly stuff. And then you start to think, is this stuff that could be happening to our own kids? People don't stop to realize when they're putting that stuff out there.
Yeah.
Can you imagine your kids getting stuff like this?
Yeah, no, we've always tried to tell our kids, like, when you put something out there, it's out there, and they're just, I think we're just lucky that we grew up in the era of not having social media and phones and stuff, because we know the difference, or you can convince yourself like, I'm going to stay out, they just don't have that. That's all they've known. And so they don't have a shut off like we do.
They can't get away from it. That's one of the things. Yeah. You can't really get away from it. Like you said, it's if whatever's out there, whether it's true or not, is always out there.
Yeah. But no, I mean, Jackson's had, I don't know. Yeah. This year things have been quiet. I mean, there's rumors that mom told both of them to kind of knock it off. We'll see. I don't know if that's true or just was like, just get out of the, I mean, he definitely had there was this assault case, in Kansas City that he did. So it was like a unwanted kiss thing that he got. So so that didn't help his, it was some kind of I think it was one of those weird misunderstanding things, but it got blown up and he was getting sued for that and stuff. So.
And has there been anything with Jackson and his brother? Do they actually have a good relationship?
I think so. I mean, he's at all the games. Yeah,
Does Patrick come out and defend him, or is Patrick kind of I don't even want to be?
Yeah, I think that he's really deflected stuff. He won't talk about either one of them. But yeah, because I think it was coming up, and he's pretty quick to bounce that off. But you don't see it too much. But yeah, I mean, I just saw him yesterday. He was at the game. I think you said he just seems to be flying under the radar a little more.
Right.
Somebody probably, I'm sure, was like, "Hey,
I'm curious if it was a PR type thing for the Mahomes brand, kind of talking to him about it, or maybe he's moved on. You mentioned they're all really young, anyways. Maybe he's moved on from that and he's kind of changing on his own. Who knows? But yeah, that's been a dynamic that I've been like, oh my god, when Taylor got kind of attached to the Chiefs now with Uncle Travie.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, I mean, people already hate Brittany and Jackson. Now you have Taylor. I was like, they may be the most hated team outside of Kansas City. Yeah. That's why I was kind of joking with the clip that I put out yesterday with you talking about New Heights podcast. And I thought it was brilliant when you were saying that as a drummer, you see yourself in football terms kind of like a center. Yeah. And so that's how we started talking about Jason Kelce, Travis Kelce, and all that. And I thought, well, I'm just going to kind of be not necessarily stir the pot, but I was like, I kind of have an idea what I want to do for that thumbnail. Yeah. And you had your Chiefs gear on, and I had a picture of Taylor in that one. I think on Instagram I threw in Jackson just because I knew that would piss people off.
Nothing wrong with that. No, man, it is. I think they're just looking for reasons to get mad at people, and it must not be the players must not be super hateable because they just hate on their families instead. But I think it's just because they're out there,
What's before we get into Amanda says she needs help deciphering the golden camel. So she's talking about the latest thumbnail on that. So Greg in that clip is describing the Empire Striking Back song from his boys Ill Filth, the group that he was part of, which was, what does the filth stand for?
Fathers I like to hump or hug or hold, whatever.
Fathers I like to hump. And so a camel has a hump. So I threw that in there as a little ode to decoding things. There was a few things I thought of, and I was like, well, I don't want to be too literal. So I was like, I'll put a camel just to throw people off a bit and just be like, oh, is anybody going to take the time to try to figure this out?
Yeah, I think it started as, I think we were trying to figure out what you could do with MILF, and then filth came out, and then that's how the whole thing kind of slowly happened. It was pretty funny.
Which is, I mean, that's interesting when you have to get together with your band group of people and come up with a name. And that's going to be very similar to listening and watching us come up with possible show ideas and working through a bunch of stuff, which we're going to get into in just a couple of minutes. But I when you explained that to me, and you're a bunch of dads putting together a band, you guys have obviously a sense of humor. You listen to the lyrics of the Empire Striking Back, and I was listening today, and throughout my day as I'm walking around, it's just in my head. So it's really catchy. There's a little thing with the guitar throughout the song that I'm like, I kind of dig that. Now I'm kind of a guitar guy now in my rock phase that I'm heading into. And I'm like, I'm listening to some of the words, and I'm like, you guys are kind of edgy on some things to where I'm sure it'll piss off somebody. But I'm like, it's if you think about the intent, and I can only think about the intent with you because I don't know the guys that you're with.
Right.
I'm like, I think it's just them kind of having fun and kind of just pushing right up to that edge.
Yeah.
Of appropriate, inappropriate, but just kind of funny. And if you like it, you're gonna love it. If you're gonna hate it, then you're gonna hate it.
The whole band, like the whole idea was that, like, really, like you said, was all centered on the Beastie Boys License to Ill record. And like, so what's cool about I got to get you a copy of the whole album. It's not, I don't think I can get it. It's not available through social media. I got to figure out how to get it to you somehow. I just probably have to download stuff. I have it, but it was the whole fun part about it was a lot of the lyrics on the other songs were about Minneapolis. It was very much like how rap centers around where you are, your neighborhoods. So for me to listen to it now, it's really fun to hear. I'll ask, because I'd ask them, because I wasn't involved in the lyric writing. Dave and Will, the two kind of MC guys, they were the ones that kind of would bounce stuff off each other and come up with these. They'd come to practice, and like, they have you say, like, I was on the 122. I'm like, what's that? And he's like, oh, that's the bus route that goes from this, and I'm like, just stuff like that. Or like he referenced in a song, like a number 6 and she's a 7. And I was like, what's that? And he's like, those are sandwich orders. I'm like, God, I love it. Like, so because when we wrote Empire, that started as like just us sitting around drinking after practice, and we were chumming up with things, just funny things. And we got stuck on Star Wars, and all we were saying was like, taking Star Wars scenes or whatever and just turn them into dirty lines.
It's just silly shit that I can just see people from like our generation.
Yeah.
You get stuck on Star Wars, of all things that you guys are talking about, drinking a little or whatever, and you're just having fun, and you're with the right group of people who are kind of creative, and you put together this freaking song that's just, it really is. I had to go through, because my captioning that I use is auto caption. And so as I was reading the captions, I was like, okay, that doesn't make sense to what I think you guys are saying. So I had to listen through the song a little bit to fix the captions. I'm not even sure I got it all right.
That's so funny.
But it's actually, the guys who wrote it then are pretty clever. But it's funny that you're part of the band and you're like, I don't know what the fuck some of the phrases were.
Yeah, some of in that one in particular, I get, because that one was very specific. Because like you said, we were kind of throwing out, like, everybody was throwing out their best lines, and David was kind of writing them down. And then he left. I'll never forget. He left practice that night saying, "There's no way we're not writing a song about Star Wars." And then we all had a text at 6 a.m. that said, I stayed up till 3 a.m. I couldn't turn it off. He goes, here's the song. It's all about Star Wars.
That's just how.
And he kind of nerded out. I mean, like,
things happen.
Yeah.
And
Twin sons of Tatooine. I didn't even know. I'm like, what is that? Oh, the two sons. Like,
so as a Star Wars fan, I picked up on things like that. I'm like, okay, there's somebody there writing that's actually references. a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
And then you, who may not be as familiar, you're like, yeah, that's kind of brilliant just from an artist perspective. And then you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Now I get it. And then all the Minneapolis references, and to somebody like me, I'm not going to get them. But I'm like, you just have to. That's why I always feel, and I had a conversation with another podcast creator a couple months ago, to where when you go down this path, and here we'll formally start getting into Greg and I talking about putting together some ideas for a show. You can't do this. You can't do a band, I don't think. You can't do a podcast show or something creative with your existing friends and family, I don't think. You have to make sure that when you run ideas, creative ideas through somebody, it has to be with other creative people. It has to be with other band people. It has to be with other podcast people, because very few people that you are currently around are going to understand, and they're going to be the first and the wettest and the heaviest blankets on your creative ideas.
Right. Yeah. No, it's true. That's because that was my favorite part of writing music is when we would when you try to do something and see what happens with it, so that's where, like, in doing this project, like the same thing, like where I've been kind of like, let's just see what happens. I think that's okay. And I do that when I write songs a lot. It's really fun to, like I said before, sometimes songs are written and when they come in, that's how some people create. They're like, hey, I got this idea. But my
Right.
buddy Jay and I used to make it, and this Ill Filth, he was part of that. A lot of that was just trying stuff and see what would happen. Try it this way. Let's go back and try it this way. It doesn't matter when it's your own song. You can do whatever you want. Be like, oh, let's play it faster. No, I don't like that. Let's go back to what we were doing. And sometimes it just happens right away. Empire was like that. I mean, we had a couple other songs on that album that were like that just happened. We're just goofing around, and then somebody's like, "Oh, keep doing that." Like.
But does it still bother you or anybody else in that kind of environment to be confident enough to bring up an idea and then have it get shot down and then you can move on? Like, how good are you with that?
I'm okay with it because it goes back to what we've talked about before, just being the harmony guy, like just being somebody that's like, I don't want to rock the boat, but like, I enjoy working with people that are more open like that. Sometimes, and some people just have, they're just like, this is how I want it. And you kind of learn that when you work with people. Like musically, when I've worked with a lot of different people. I mean, even 6 Months to Live, that whole concept of every year was a different band. You're working with different guys. So you're trying to kind of figure everybody out. And some people are, wanted a certain way. Other people are more open to stuff. So yeah, but it's more fun, I think, when you can just try things out and don't get stuck on an idea. Or like, hey, I think we should do this here. Like,
but your feelings though, of let's say you were trying to submit something for lyrics, or whatever, and then they're like, just stick to the beat, Greg. You're the drummer.
Yeah, I think because I don't do that, I think it is harder. It is harder, and I don't get into that too often because I don't write a lot of lyrics. I do like to arrange. I think my strengths lie in arranging sometimes, like moving things around,
right?
Or being like seeing kind of this bigger picture. But yeah, it is hard. Like you don't want to like, because sometimes people write like the guys that write lyrics tend to like come from a place, right? There's some reason they're speaking about something, so it's harder to like judge that. You know what I mean? But sometimes you might find a word that, hey, like you're trying to fit 2 words into a phrase and maybe one word would be better.
Like, hey, what rhymes with cum shot, guys? And you're just like, oh man.
Oh man.
Who's got a thesaurus?
Yeah. Where's it at? Hold on.
But it's interesting where this kind of wraps into also like the Beatles chat a little bit that we talked about with the dynamic with John and Paul. And they were the primary writers, and then George getting to the point to where he started feeling like he wanted to contribute more.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of see where some of the animosity builds up, because a lot of times they're like, yeah, that's okay, George. Just go back to playing the guitar like we've told you to.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, it's all personalities, right? And like, and again, I think it'd be harder if I was like a big songwriter, where I'm bringing an element to a song versus like, hey, I have this idea. I want you to play it in this chorus. It's like when you have something, it is hard. I think sometimes I've seen it in the guys in my bands. Like, if they've worked on something and it's like, they want you to hear it. And then you're like, oh yeah, you should do that. It's like, what? Like,
right.
Or just getting a band excited. Like I've played another band where there was 2 songwriters. So very much like he wrote a song. Watching people get excited, it's like, oh, it's almost like you feel like, oh, we all kind of attracted to this song, let's work on it. Then it's like the other guy's like, hey, when are we going to work on my song?
Right.
Kind of like, so
that's tough. That's part of being in a group to where all of a sudden you think it's just all fun and games, and it's not.
Yeah. I mean, luckily most of the time, just because we're not, none of us have ever been taking it too serious, since we do this for fun and stuff, but it still can be, like, because it takes a while sometimes. Sometimes, that's just how songs work, I think, in general. Some things just happen. Some songs fall right in your lap and they're done in 5 minutes. And you're like, wow, I can't believe that. Other ones might take 10 years to write. We've had some where we just couldn't find the right path. Like just,
right.
It's like, do we just not do it? And, it's like some of them just, you got to just roll with it.
And like, I think in your situation, especially when you were in the 6 Months to Live, to where you're doing that every year with a different band.
Yeah.
So you've got this ticking clock to where you're like, we don't have time to kind of mess around with this stuff, guys. let's
have fun.
find let's find the set and hammer the stuff out.
Yeah, that was the fun part. I think of that was you knew you weren't trying to make like Stairway to Heaven. You were just like, we're just trying to play a set, have some fun. Because part of it, that was the excitement of that was you kind of created a backstory about your band, or like, what is your band? It's kind of like what we're talking about. Like, what are we going to do? And so that was the fun of it. It was like, oh, we're a country band and we're going to look like this. And so our songs are going to be all about, typical, stuff like that. Because it was genius. One year, my buddies were in a band. They did a 70s, like, if you've heard of yacht rock, right? Like kind of the yacht rock.
Yeah.
I didn't even catch on until halfway through their set. Every song was a girl's name.
Oh, really?
And when you go back to the 70s, you had like Amanda. I'm trying to think who there was, like Mandy. Oh, Mandy, Barry Manilow. Like there's so many songs that were like, and I'm like, oh, that's so funny that each of their songs was a girl name. Like that probably happened in a practice. Like, hey guys, we're going to wear silk shirts. We're going to look cheesy 70s yacht rock band, and all our songs are going to be about a woman.
And none of those names are names that people name their girls today,
Right.
Just like there's no family that's naming their kid in 2024 Brian or Greg, I don't think.
Yeah.
Real quick. Okay, so we're going to get into 45 minutes into the show.
Yeah. We're
going to get into some brainstorming here. Amanda had a question. Who do I bounce my ideas off of? And that's a great question, Amanda, because I don't really. I'm very internal with any kind of creative ideas until I get into a position to where I'm working with somebody, and then I will vomit all of the ideas out, because I know then I'm talking with somebody who's kind of on the same page. But there's really nobody, let's just say, and not like I hang out with a bunch of people or people from work or something like that. I'm not going to bounce creative ideas that's outside of whatever it is we're doing, just because most people don't particularly are going to understand or have the same sense of humor. I have to make sure that whoever I'm around has the same sense of humor. So like with Greg and potentially this show, this is a great way that you're going to see us kind of throwing out ideas. And I feel like I'm in a planning room with him to where he kind of understands the sense of humor that I'm going for. And so we're going to be throwing around ideas that may or may not be good ideas off the top of our heads, but this is where I will do it. Or like even Amanda with you, there's been several times to where Amanda and I will do these like weird ass TikToks or Instagram videos to where it's like a long running story that has nothing to do with when, like with gardening, let's say, because I'm friends with from gardening initially, but she just has this weirdo sense of humor also to where I know I can pitch something to Amanda, and if she doesn't get it, she's like, "Well, fuck it, okay. Just tell me what kind of video do you want me to do? You want me screaming this way, or what do you want me to do?" And she'll just do it, and we'll post it, and it'll get like 5 views, and all think it's the funniest, most brilliant thing. Nobody else would get it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's what I just want to do. And that's similar to Greg and I doing a little bit of this. There's a lot of stuff to where we're like, this is going to be fun, but it's probably just going to be fun for me and Greg and maybe 1 or 2 other people who randomly will stumble on it.
That's my hope though. Like I like to I think there's funny stories. There's funny things I think of, there's stuff. And I'm like, Brian's the perfect person to talk to about it. And we can laugh and like, cause you always have this good way of like trying to learn more about it. And that's what's cool. Like you're willing to listen. And so that to me is where I think it's fun. I was like, there's funny stuff out there.
Greg is on YouTube, Tinder. What's the Brumble or Bumble?
Busty. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter,
and TikTok. Is that one public or no?
Oh yeah, I'm still figuring out TikTok. I don't do anything personally on there, but I just
that's just where you're consuming all the girls dancing and stuff.
Yeah.
That's the one that you're sending me these TikToks. You're like, oh man, if this was just when we were in Mizzou.
Yep. Well, I'm on there to, I got a almost 16-year-old daughter. I'm watching her
Right. Wait,
When Rachel comes in, what are you doing? Oh, nothing. I thought I saw Kinley on TikTok.
Let's live stream your history on TikTok and just see all the ones that Greg's been watching.
Well, right now it's all today was videos of Travis and Taylor kissing after the game. I couldn't stop watching him.
I know.
I'm just I can't get enough of that. I don't know why. If they break up, I'm going to be crushed.
I think here's my take on that real quick, and then we've got to start talking about the freaking planning of the show or whatever. I think they're going to end up doing. They're going to go through. They're going to get married, or I think she's going to end up pregnant or something.
Yeah, you want to hear a funny story? Do you have time for a funny story?
Yeah.
Is Amanda still on?
Probably.
She might think this is funny too. So last night, because we're dudes, we were all watching the game. My wife was there though, and like we were with some friends, and we were laughing when Travis caught a touchdown at the beginning. And I just go like, oh man, she's gonna have to blow him. He got a touchdown. Like just assuming they have this funny like couple, like, oh, you get a touchdown. And they all at the same time, we were all like, oh, I bet she has like, because of singing, she probably has like, no, it's like in my contract. Or then it came up, we were like, I bet she has somebody on her staff. It's like, hey, get over here.
Amanda's saying she's still on, but then she just gave us the face emoji.
Yeah.
You know what? So here's the thing. I think Travis, from what little I've seen of him and on New Heights, I think he would fit in like here with us.
Oh yeah,
with his sense of humor. I think he's kind of a good guy.
I think so.
A little rough with some of his humor or whatever, but I think he's kind of on the smart end of things. Like I'll listen to him and Jason.
Yeah.
And I always thought Jason was kind of maybe the smarter of the two, but I think what kind of masked that for me, and I could be completely wrong. Maybe Travis is a kind of not a very smart guy or something, but he seems kind of with it though. There's times where I'm like, I think he's kind of on the intelligence side of things. I think he's got a high EQ, and I honestly, I don't think Taylor would go for somebody who's just this dumb, good-looking jock. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
No, I think he's a good dude. I think they seem like you said, from watching them, I think they're good guys from from Ohio that just grew up blue collar family that have found success and are enjoying it. But I think they are. I think they're good people that just like to have a good time. And
I think Taylor likes to have a good time, but I think she's very conscious of what she puts forth, but I think she would probably fit in with the sense of humor also.
Yeah. I think that's what's probably cool for her. Is I think it's cool for her to spend time in a place like Kansas City, or like being around the Kelseys, who grew up just a normal family. I mean, 15 years ago, they were just any other sports family, right? Like two boys in high school, and here they are, right? Like on top of the world, playing each other in the Super Bowl. And like,
that's crazy. That was crazy last year, and that's when I first started kind of following them. Amanda, there's nobody else watching this, so don't send up a comment in the chat. That just shines a light that nobody's watching the live here. But I don't think Greg's Instagram is private.
I don't think so.
It should be public.
Yeah, I think it's just Greg Isenhower. Yeah, Greg.
I think I've tagged you in most of the stuff, so people should be able to kind of follow you.
Should be just Greg. Yeah, Greg. It's with an I. My name's spelled with an I, so it doesn't have the silent E at the beginning.
So I think it's the same on TikTok and YouTube. It's all the same kind of handle. So where are we at on the planning here? Kind of, what are you thinking? You said today you were driving and you were mad, texting me stuff, and you're like, "Hey, I'm just putting this down so it's on. It's in the ether."
I had a couple show names pop in my head. So the one I like right now is called "Hear Me Out," because I just think I love how we can debate topics or talk about. So the whole "Hear Me Out" thing could have multiple meanings. It could be like any of our sports, music, entertainment, whatever topics, hear me out, like hear both sides of the story. Like I'm a big fan of that. Like we talked about, like being able to, like you and I said, being able to talk to somebody but not have a real just normal conversation and hear both sides. So hear me out, but it also has the music tie-in, right? Like hear me out. Then I thought back to like us talking about getting people on the show that maybe played music. Hear me out would be like, where would we hear them? Like hear me out I'm playing at this bar in 2 weeks. Like I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool, like Yeah.
I think that's great. The fact that it can go several different ways. So yeah,
So that
definitely
was
put
one.
that on our list.
Yeah, I have that on the sticky. I still like, besides the music, I still like some of the other ones we have on there. I've just been trying to think of other stuff. But I had one of those nights last night where I couldn't sleep, man. I was just could not sleep, and I kept having ideas. And next time it happens, I'm gonna go write them all down, because in the morning I'm like, I know I'll remember them, and then I only remembered like a quarter of them.
Well, I had a bit of an epiphany driving to Indy
Yeah.
for the last few days. So I've been out of town. And I realized the trap that I was kind of going down as we were going through some ideas for a potential show, of which we weren't really sure, but we were kind of in a general direction. And then I had some concerns and everything. And so what I wanted to say tonight is, some of what I was saying before was tainted with what I do and don't want to do with Tossing Salad, and that should be completely separate.
Right.
So I need to kind of reevaluate some of the things that I've either told you or said that I kind of want to head down, because some of those things it can be done, if it's something that I really want to do, can be done on Tossing Salad. So, my thing is I want to get back to where I'm a little more open to possibly letting you take the reins a little bit in crafting up the show idea. And I just hope you hammer out these ideas, but I almost kind of want, is this a dangerous thing to where I almost kind of want you to craft a show that you want to do, and I'll help you hammer out the details, because I think I can mold myself to whatever, and I think that we'll make it fun no matter what we do.
Yeah.
So this might be an opportunity for you to kind of, what do you really want to do, and I'll just help you fine tune that.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think we're on the right page. I do agree. I think it has to be, it can't be. Yeah, exactly. She said pen and paper on the nightstand. I literally said that this morning. Yeah,
his nightstand is probably full of lube and toys.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, by the way, Greg, I don't know if you saw Amanda's thing today, that she finally changed her sheets, her bed sheets. She got guilted into doing that.
Oh,
so she's like a multi-week changer.
Wow.
And I'm like, she did a video, and I'm like, those sheets that she was putting into the laundry, I was like, those looked a little crispy to me.
Yeah.
A little crispy. So she finally changed them, I think today or yesterday or something.
That's funny. We had a conversation with somebody last weekend about that. So it made me laugh. It's a topic. It's a topic. Yeah, I love the idea of trying to center a show around music, because I think there's,
and if that doesn't work,
I
get it. Just from my experience and knowing from marketing from what I have done so far, I'm hesitant to being a little catch-all. If we don't have some kind of identity. I know. And how do we do that? We could possibly make it to where I still love this kind of newspaper idea of yours, to where you have like the front news, and we can talk about stuff like that, and entertainment, the arts, some sports. But then it's like, okay, but what is the identity of the show? Because people don't know or give a shit that it's you or I or me. I don't know. Is it you or I, or you and me? I don't know.
You and I. Just you and I.
So it's you and I. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I liked how tonight went. I thought it was fun. It was just interesting how we started by talking about like a live event from this weekend. So current news, and morphed into getting the chance to talk about Taylor and Brittany and everybody. That was fun. And maybe, like I said, I think the idea of tying it to music somehow, or at least that being the base of it, but I think it's still going to be okay to like veer off and find things. And who knows, maybe there's a way to always like tie music into it or something, but like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
There's the tricky part. There is a part of me that's like, fuck it, let's just start doing shows and we'll figure that out. But I'm like, that's what I do for Tossing Salad. Yeah. So do I need to have another show like that, or do we should we put forth a little effort on the front end and try to hammer out an identity to this show?
I think so.
So we can explain it. Because when you go to Rachel, when I go to Amanda and she's like, okay, what did you and Greg, what's the show about? What have you guys thought? I was like, I don't fucking know yet.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
you go to your wife. What do you tell her right now?
Yeah. That we just whisper things in each other's ears. No,
we just wasted an hour Monday
no.
night while she's taking, well, it's not like she has to take care of the kids anymore, but
no, she's up there like, if he comes up in a few minutes, he might get lucky.
She's snapping her boyfriend or whatever.
Yeah, she's on TikTok.
Oh my God.
She's got 17-year-old boys on there like coming after her. That's bad. We don't promote that. Yeah, I think we gotta be, I just like the idea of being, like I was saying, when it's fun to write music, sometimes it doesn't have to be, we don't have to have a solid path, but I think we got to have like at least a direction, right? Like we kind of got to have a feel. It's like when you think of a name, like, and this doesn't have, I'm not saying this has to be the name, but I keep looking as I wrote it down. Like when I see "Hear Me Out," like to me, that's like a phrase that it would work for so many things. Like you could be like, hey, hear me out on this crazy take I have, because I got one of those too. I got an idea for a show. It doesn't have to do with music, but I think it'd be just fun to talk about. Do you want me to throw it out, or else I'm going to save it for now? But I don't know. That's when I look at that. I'm like, oh man, if you've got, whether it's like the segment names, obviously there's like the structure of the show. The ones I listen to seem to have kind of like those repeating things, and I mean, I go back to stuff we love, like Saturday Night Live and stuff too, just trying to find those like little fun things that happen.
Right.
Because one of our little sticky notes is who's going to do what. I wanted to get your feeling on what do you need from me? I don't mind trying to help drive the content, or try to help lay out like how the show should go. But what do you need from me?
Once we kind of figure out what type of show and our identity, we can kind of hammer out, okay, well, what needs to happen with a show like this? Because we have to determine, are we going to have regular guests on or not? If we have regular guests, we're going to have to be like, okay, well, who's going to be in charge of really kind of finding guests and getting them kind of set up to come on and showing them how to do it and getting them on the software and all that stuff. And then it's a matter of, okay, well, what type of show is it? Do we have to plan for it? So then what's the show structure going to be? You have during the show, kind of a producer type thing to where at some point, if we're doing a show, you'll have kind of a co-producer thing here on StreamYard to where you can have access to a lot of what I'm seeing. Okay. And so you can start throwing stuff up on the window, and we can be like, okay, well, one of us is going to be in charge of that, and one of us is going to be more of the kind of the host through it. Like, are we going to have one person that kind of is the host and the other person's kind of a co-host? Or are we going to have somebody that's, maybe you're the one who mainly talks and guides us through the show, and then I'm the one that's talking with you, but I'm also working the comments and I'm putting up the things on the window. So there's a lot of small things that I'm like, we can get into that once we figure out what the show's going to be. Okay. And then that's not even counting into, on the back end of things, we've got to edit the show. How do we want to do that? Yeah. What kind of editing do we want to do? Are we going to hit all the social media platforms? Right. We got, short form videos, long form videos. Do we want to do that? And then, basically kind of the marketing, like even on like Threads. For me, Threads has been kind of an interesting thing to where it's very easy for me to get on there and just type out some stuff. I'm not putting up photos really or video, although you can. Right. But it's more just blurbs kind of throughout the day, kind of like Twitter. Okay. And that's a market too. So it's like, okay, well, are we going to have separate show handles to where the show is going to have its handle on TikTok, YouTube? Right. Who's going to be in charge of following up on those comments or whatever, which I guess at the beginning is going to be none. So just, stuff like that.
Okay.
If that answers part of your question.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, some of that I feel like I can handle, and like the technical stuff, some of the video edit, things like that. Those are things I've never really done a lot of, but we can work through. I mean, managing social media, all the other stuff. Yeah, as we figure it out.
And there could be things like, let's say with the editing of videos and stuff, it's something that I'm used to.
Mm-hmm.
I can handle. Am I really good at it? Probably not compared to a lot of the stuff that I see, but I'm probably better than most.
Right.
But it could be something to where you might want to try to increase your skill set. Yeah. You might think it's fun, or it might be interesting to have two different versions to where I may see something from a show that we do that I'm like, okay, I'm going to cut content this way, but you may cut it different and it may hit different.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
So yeah, there's a ton of stuff, but I think that's all like after we figure out like what the identity is, what we're doing. Anybody that's listening or watching this, or if you're watching it later on, I mean, if you have some input on that, or you think that you kind of are hearing what we're talking about and you might have an idea for us, let us know, because it may just spark us to thinking down the right avenue to really kind of pull some things together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because this will be a good creative outlet, and I'm going to need that. So I think this will be a really fun way to just try to get creative on topics that we like, and that's why music just keeps like coming back, because I feel like everything centers around that to some degree, right?
Like, right.
Whether it's anything. Right now it's sports, right? Right now sports and music are crossing, and and you had award shows recently where music's involved, and then you'll get, politics will come into play with music. Like it's just, so it'd be a lot. We can always center around that, I think, in many different ways.
Yeah. And we go back to what we discussed in the last live that we had, is we don't have to have the show address every single thing that we want to do. So whether we may have 10 things that we're kind of interested in, and trying to find a way to make all 10 happen within a show may not work.
Right.
So let's just pick 3 or 4 that and make that a really good show. And then all that extra stuff we can figure out, maybe those are just special segments that we do every now and then, or maybe that's something to where you can get your itch scratched doing a segment on tossing salad or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So instead of trying to fit 10 different things to make it work into a show,
awesome. Okay,
we find 3 or 4 that we're really into. And I think I can certainly kind of not leave this to you, but kind of be like, Greg, what are you kind of wanting to do? And I'll help you create what you're wanting to do.
Okay. Yeah. What's the, what's the best way, like, to say you're going to be like, okay, we're going to put our first show out on this date, right? Let's just say we started there. Would you script some of it out? Like, how would you go about, would you want me to be like, hey, here's what I want to talk about? Maybe like give it a little structure ahead of time?
Again, once we kind of figure out the show, it could be a very loose kind of skeleton of the show. Like, like tonight, I knew that we were going to talk, kind of whiteboard our show and throw some ideas around. And then I knew that we would most likely kind of touch on Kansas City Chiefs stuff, since it was yesterday. Yeah. And there's so many side stories that's just fun for non-sports people that we touched on today. So like a very loose outline for the show today could have been, okay, we're going to come in, talk Kansas City Chiefs. And then at some point we're going to get into talking about putting our show together. And then, maybe down the road with like, okay, and then we're either going to do an interview, or the interview is going to do this with us and talk about this stuff. So however scripted we want to be, I could go either way. I'm good at kind of having a ballpark of what we're going to do. And maybe that's where we decide, okay, are you comfortable in kind of being the Howard Stern, and you're moving the show along and say, okay, we've talked Kansas City Chiefs. Let's get into the planning. So you're moving us from A, B to C, and then I'm going with you and helping to support you as you're Robin and Baba Booey or whatever. Or it could be vice versa, to where you're like, okay, you can do some of the producing stuff, and then I'm the one that's kind of the main voice of the show, to where I'm setting the speed of what we're doing and moving from A, B to C. Where I think it kind of gets a little wonky is if we're both trying to do that.
Yeah.
So I know, like, when Chelsea and I were together doing a show or whatever, we kind of practice going, giving each other the power to kind of set the direction of the show and the pace. But I think it'd probably be good for us to address that too, to be like, okay, are you the guy that's moving us through the show, or am I doing that?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, all good things to think about.
It fits in with your analogy with the drumming.
Yeah.
You can't have more than one person drumming.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, you got to fill the roles. I like that. Yeah, we'll I think we start. I got a couple ideas. We can start throwing down a few things, maybe, of like, here's where we could, give a couple pilot shows a run and see what happens, and start laying out like you said, like a skeleton is what I was thinking. Just kind of like, hey, here's how we should kind of do it. Keep, like you said, keep it on path and try to get through it, whatever the topic might be or whatever we want to talk about.
Yeah, I don't want to take a step back too much and put too much pressure on you, but I don't know, maybe this helps us move forward. And if I just kind of give you more of the managerial role right now in trying to create the show, that because I've got faith that you've got something in mind, and I'll definitely help you whittle that down however we need to do it. And I'm kind of all for whatever kind of idea that you're kind of thinking that would be good. We can kind of talk, you throw any kind of topic down, we'll probably find some way to talk about it.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Okay. That's cool, man.
I can't wait to cut up the Jackson Mahomes clips. Throw that out there soon. Get that ready for the
poor guy.
Is it this weekend, or do I have 2 weeks to get?
Yeah, 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. Woohoo!
Yeah, I'm gonna throw out
Vegas,
just all kinds of just juicy stuff, talking Brittany Mahomes and Jackson Mahomes. And sometimes I do that. I sometimes I invite stuff like that. Just I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's weak moments or not, but I'm like, oh, that'll get some troll going.
Yeah, you don't want to get them too. Yeah,
but then I don't want to have them camped out. But I'm like, oh, if I start, if the hook of this video is Jackson Mahomes dancing, and then it goes right into us talking about him, I just know somebody's going to say something. But I'm like,
yeah,
am I feeding into the negativity that I've been complaining about?
Yeah,
maybe.
No, it's people got to get over it. If these people aren't doing literally anything wrong, really. I mean, he has, like I said, he got in a little trouble, but I just mean, they're not really out there bothering people.
Yeah. That's the interesting take, but you just wait and see. Let's just see. I'm gonna try to make a couple clips, and I guarantee you it's probably gonna be 90. If we get any kind of comments back, it's all gonna be negative.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I saw just a great example is like every week people used to complain that Brittany she'd be up there screaming, "Let's fucking go," right? That's everybody's favorite thing. Tom Brady yells it all the time, like, "Let's fucking go." That's the thing, right? And people were talking to her about that. And then Taylor's second time in the suite, I saw the camera caught her saying exactly that same thing, and nobody came at her about that. And then this weekend, Eminem there was a picture of him with double birds. Can you imagine if Taylor double birded the Ravens crowds the way that Eminem did?
And that's, on one hand, that's just Eminem, right?
Right. Yeah.
And nothing about it. On the other hand, she'll be on every.
Yeah. Be like, oh, I can't believe she was so disrespectful to and that's kind of Brittany gets that treatment sometimes. Like a couple years ago, there was a video of her spraying out of the booth champagne all over the crowd, and people ripped her for that. We're like, I would be so mad if I was out in 30-degree weather. But everybody at the game was like, the fans were begging her to do it. They were so happy. They're like, yeah, spray. You know what I mean? Because like at a game, I mean, people are going to be like, yeah, spray us. Like, we just won. Like,
well, the comment I've heard also, aside from the fact that she's the first girlfriend that he hasn't gotten rid of yet, right?
Right.
So when you make it, they tend to say you upgrade.
Right.
Another thing that I've heard is the fact that she's I'm relaying information for the point of the discussion, that they say that she's not pretty enough to do this.
Oh, interesting.
If she was prettier, or if she was hotter, they said she could get away with a lot of this stuff.
Oh, that's fine. I don't know. I think she's pretty.
But you know what I'm saying, though?
Yeah.
So then it all goes back to
they're tearing her down. Yeah.
Because would they be doing that if she was
just smoking?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I get it. And that sucks for her. That's probably why she has to work so hard to be. For that reason, that's just girls in general, man. That's they have to work hard to fight off so many comments.
We're gonna find out.
Yeah.
So let me know. We'll do another one of these whenever. Like today, you're like, "Hey, can we do a live tonight?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think I should be available."
Yeah, I just wanted to grab your thought on a couple of these things and just try to just steer us in a direction a little bit, so we're not just floating around, you know.
And we may be floating for weeks or something until something kind of comes up. But I think that, the good thing is there's no time frame.
Right. Nope.
And if there's something we want to try out or whatever, the great thing is we have a show that we can kind of do a podcast episode on, or do a live, and just kind of, as we're trying to figure out what it is that we have here. And I'm excited about it. I feel like I'm at that creative point to where there's so much information. I'm having a hard time really trying to narrow it down.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot. But like you said, that I think we can make it work. I think we'll just, because not everything's a good idea. It's the same thing you do with music. Sometimes you got to just be like, there'll be lots of ideas, and you just got to try the one or two things that make sense. And then the other stuff just kind of like, you get excited about that then, and you're like, okay, I'm not going to worry about that.
Did you say like Nirvana for that one album took them 2 years or something?
Yeah.
I forgot what you said exactly, but I thought you said one of those groups that took them 2 years of going in and out of the studio. And
yeah.
Because I think we were talking about the one Beatles album took them like 2 days.
Yeah. That's right. And you can do that, but then, no, I think it's just running with some like script ideas and some thoughts, and start to get some things down. Be like, oh yeah, let's just try this out.
So at the end of this, real quick before we go, I swear everybody's like, oh my God, just end it. Is before I scrap my old intro, like I can't even put this intro out anymore because I'm like, everybody makes me feel so bad about it. Is there anything using this?
Toss it up.
Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Toss it up.
I think it's funny. I like it.
Toss it up. Toss it up.
The Tossing Salad Podcast with your host, Brian.
It's so good.
So it's just like, is that just all hacked together from somebody that doesn't know what he's doing? Yes, of course. Is that?
But I also like how
Amanda. Like that's Amanda with her. It's something she did on one of her videos, and I was like, can I take
funny.
that vocal? And she's like, why? And I'm like, because I want to make an intro. And she's like, okay. And so I did that.
I like it.
Is there any salvaging that? Like, could you put your drum beat or something to make it hit harder for Tossing Salad? Or should I should I just start from scratch and just have you make me an intro?
No, I think it's cool. I think it works. Like, I think it has a.
Amanda says it's horrible, but I think she hates it because
she's in
her
it. Yeah. I like the vibe of it. I think I like the whole toss it up, like the different, like the way you've morphed it a little bit.
You know, I feel like I'm Ringo coming to George and Paul right now and being like, help me with the Octopus's Garden, fellas. That's my Octopus's Garden that I'm needing help on.
Yeah.
Think it over. Okay. And if something comes to mind, if you think that you can maybe buff that out a little bit into something that can be used for a proper intro.
Or can I find it somewhere so I can
I'll have to send it to you. I'm not even sure. Yeah, I think I just kind of hacked it together and somehow was able to.
I could do something close to that for sure, but I don't
just
know.
Make it even to where, you know, I think I used it for like 3 episodes. And I think my one guest, Dwayne, he was like, yeah, I think you're going to have to go back to the drawing board on that.
I dig it. I think there's something like cool about it. I don't know. It's oddly like catchy, and that's what it should be, right? Like
oddly catchy and horrible at the same time. I could just see, you know, driving in a minivan, you're taking kids to school and you're like, toss it up.
Toss it up.
You got the Tossing Salad podcast going in the van. So
dude, I had was listening to the one I made you the other day that we had as just one of our sample ideas. And this weekend I got in MIZ footage. So like at the end of it, it's like MIZ.
I'm excited. So
I was just trying to play around, see if
as
I
far
can
as like details go, I'm excited just to have you working on like music for this potential show and like either segments and the intro, outros. I think you're going to be really cool. I think that's going to be exciting.
Oh yeah.
So I figured I would. I've got this relationship with you, and I might as well ask for help or something on something like that. So.
I love it. Yeah, send me the toss it up because I dig it, but maybe we can do something fun with it.
All right. All right, guys, we are at the end of today's live, and Greg, I will see you fairly soon, I think. We'll do another live soon, and we're going